Episode number 1 of the Economic War Room was with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. It was a huge coup for us. Colonel West is a personal hero. He's an Army officer who put his life on the line. He also put his life on the line going into Congress as a public servant in Congress. And he's the former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. He's a patriot. And welcome back, Colonel West.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think we're on episode 230, so it took me a while to get back. But
yeah,
it's an honor.
You've been a few times. You were right before COVID, and we're glad to have you back.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
We're hoping for a sit rep. We're wanting to talk about the enemies of liberty, which I list down here: CCP, Chinese Communist Party, deep state, woke globalists, jihadis. Who are we facing? Who's our battle with?
Well, it's interesting because when you take that oath to the Constitution to support and defend it, it's against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So let's look at those external enemies, the foreign enemies. Without a doubt, the number one geopolitical foe that we have is China. And downstream from them, you have, I call it the new axis of evil, being it Russia, Iran, North Korea. And we still have to be concerned about Islamic jihadism, especially when you have a wide open porous border like we have, when you've got 1 million people that have come across that border, quote unquote, gotaways, and you have no understanding who or where they are. So without a doubt, those are the external threats that we face. But I think really the most disconcerting thing are the domestic threats that we face to liberty, and it emanates out of Washington, D.C. Who would have ever thought that you would have an administration that would abdicate its constitutional duties and responsibilities to, number one, protect our national sovereignty, to number two, undermine our energy independence, to number three, target American citizens, declaring that parents who want to see their kids educated and not indoctrinated as in domestic terrorists and going after them, pro-life advocates and pro-life centers being attacked, and arson and other means of violence enacted against us. So we have incredible amount of threats that no one would have ever thought. And you look at the number one law enforcement agency at the federal government level, it has now become a weapon of this administration.
Totally politicized.
Yeah, totally politicized. And so, during the Obama administration, there was the weaponizing of the IRS, but now we have an IRS that they want to have 87,000 more agents, and they want to have them armed. So we really do have the foreign and domestic enemies that we have to be dealing with.
And sadly, they work together in some ways. I mean, you mentioned Iran, and the Biden administration wants to put back the deal with Iran.
Yes.
And then you mentioned the open borders. I mean, seriously, if you're a jihadi, it's Christmas. I guess you don't celebrate Christmas as a jihadi, but it is Christmas.
Well,
you can walk across.
Absolutely right. And so when you look at the debacle that you had in Afghanistan, where all of a sudden you enabled the Taliban to come back into power and they release all of those folks that were in prison, well, guess what? They want some payback. And when you're dealing with the cartels, which is really not a business organization, they're a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization, why we haven't designated them as such, which would enable us to really go after them, they will take the money of anybody that wants to come and do harm against the United States of America. And so when you talk about all of these threats, China right now is enacting chemical warfare against the United States of America. It's fentanyl. China has also enacted biological warfare against the United States of America with COVID. And we have a feckless, weak administration that's not doing anything. And of course, many people feel that that's because the administration is compromised.
Well, they appear to be compromised. You look at the laptop, you look at the idea that they would have in the Penn Biden Center, they have all of these classified documents and everything that the Chinese are coming in and funding. How do you define classified if it doesn't, or compromised if it doesn't include what's happened to
Well, you have
Biden?
to. And the thing that's so amazing to me, 22 years in the United States military, if I ever had classified material in my quarters, in my home, there's no debate, there's no discussion. I'm going to Fort Leavenworth. Or the worst thing is I'm going to lose my security clearance, which means I'm worthless. And furthermore, there's going to be actions taken against me and probably unfavorable discharge. But we see these politicians out there, classified documents here, there, everywhere, who's been exposed to them, and people just brush it off like it's no big deal. This is an incredible big deal.
Well, I think part of the problem is that we overclassify everything. So we don't know, is this the menu of the ambassador in the Netherlands? Is this what he had for lunch, which they might have classified, or this the nuclear secrets? We don't know. There's no way to tell. So we have two problems, is they use classified documents to control people.
Yes.
And so you get a clearance, you get a classified document, then they can control you. You're found with it, they can put you in jail. Or at minimum, it's hypocrisy because they went after the Trump.
Absolutely. And
Mar-a-Lago.
so in Mar-a-Lago, they laid all these documents out and took pictures and everything and leaked it out to the press. But you're right, we don't have any clue about what's been found at the Penn Biden Center or in his garage next to his Corvette in a locked garage, ha, ha, ha. Or even now we have the revelations about Mike Pence and finding, I think, 6 or 7 documents in his residence.